Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hi, this is Henry Gilroy, co-executive producer of Star Wars Rebels. You're listening to Aggressive Negotiations.
Hello and welcome to Aggressive Negotiations, the Nerd Party podcast here about all things Star Wars, coming at you from the Falcon as it originally looked, as owned by Lando. Ooh, and boy, does it look spiffy. And with me, as he is always, Jedi Master Sir Mix-a-Lot. That's right, he's the one who gets the drinks for us behind that fancy bar, John Mills.
Sir Mix-a-Lot had a certain predilection, though, that lines up with what this Jedi Master loves. But also, I'm trying to figure out, do you think...
And so did Lando, so that's why they're getting along so well.
No, but here's a question. Do you think that the interior of Lando, of the Falcon when Lando owned it, was not just because Lando was a fancy lad, but it was pristine? How long had it been locked down? It didn't have a chance to get messy, did it? How long had he been there?
Well, so that's a good question, and this has nothing to do with what we're going to be talking about tonight. But we'll just this is our cold open, basically.
Yeah.
So, John, I think we know that Kira says that he has a fast ship, and he's known for being able to get through blockades that nobody else can get through. So obviously, he's had the Falcon for a while. So I do believe that this is not the first time that he's had the Falcon, but it does seem like the Falcon has been clamped down for a bit, and that he's been stuck there because he stopped doing work for Crimson Dawn. And my guess is he went to Vandor, started partying it up at Fort Ipso, and then found himself locked down because he had, run into trouble with credits. And so I'm guessing he'd been there for at least a few months, is my guess.
If he was trapped at Fort Ipso, do you think that he'd also gotten in trouble at Fort Facto? Sorry, terrible Latin joke for everybody right there.
Thanks, dad joke.
So, you know what? We bring joy, and you can bring us joy by participating in our review contest right now. Isn't that right, Matt?
Absolutely. We are doing a review contest over on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, which, even if you don't have an Apple device, your PC can download iTunes still. And you can review podcasts through that. So, but it's for the USA only. So if you're out of the U.S., we will not be able to count those reviews. But in the U.S., please give us a star rating and review. Let people know what you think of the show. And because you're doing that, we're going to be giving away a copy of The Art of Star Wars, The Clone Wars, which originally came out at the first season. It's an incredible book. It's very hard to find these days. In fact, if you go searching for Amazon, people are selling it used for well over $100 usually. And I just happen to have an extra copy of this book in fantastic, pristine condition. And with the celebration of the return of the Clone Wars Season 7 finally ending, I thought, what better way to celebrate than to give this away to somebody for spending 5 minutes and giving us a review. So go over to Apple Podcasts. Or if you're still on iTunes, because you'd still be on iTunes, especially if you're on a PC, give us a star rating review. Let people know what you think of the show. Absolutely. We can't wait to give this away. Our goal is to get 200 reviews for the show, written reviews. And so it's definitely a higher number, but this is definitely a big prize. And we want to make sure that the person that wins this definitely deserves it. And I think any listener of ours will definitely deserve this. So
Absolutely.
We've gotten some great reviews that have humbled John and I, and we just want to say thank you again for all those. But keep them coming because we'd love to give this out sooner rather than later. My main hope is that by the time we get to send this out, I can actually go to the post office and send this out because we're not all still at home. So
I hope that the post office is still solvent by the time that you go to send this out. And that's a terrible, terrible, terrible commentary. However, you can also go over to the nerdparty.com and you can go to the nerdparty.com/contact. That'll send a note directly to me and Matt by email. We do respond. And sometimes what we do is we will actually use some of the questions you send as the seeds for the shows that we grow to bring to you. And you can go and you can find us online at the Jedi Masters on Twitter. The network account is at Join Nerd Party on Twitter. And you can find the Nerd Party over on Facebook and Instagram. And I don't think we have a Snapchat thing, but that's okay because, Facebook and Instagram is where all the kids hang out, I think. Right?
It's true. It's true.
No TikTok account either, but I don't know. I don't think people
old for TikTok.
Yeah, do they vet you by
Way
how
too
old you are?
for TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah. Oops.
So, yeah, thank you, and then follow us and like us all over the place. So, John, the Clone Wars is back, and as we're recording this, we're actually the evening before the last arc begins, as we're going to be getting into the Siege of Mandalore, which, I know everybody's super excited about. I know I am. I cannot wait. But one of the things that I was kind of noticing, and I kind of wanted to talk to you about, was the way in which both of these arcs, I think, do a very interesting job of kind of showing how the galaxy has changed, especially in its view of the Jedi, but also even just the Republic itself. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I was finding really fascinating because I felt like both the clone arc that we get with the Bad Batch and, of course, Echo coming back, and even Rex himself, and then, of course, the arc that we just watched with Ahsoka and the sisters. Like, I feel like both of these arcs are really giving us two sides of the same coin of the ways in which the Republic and the Jedi have kind of lost confidence for the people throughout the galaxy. In fact, if there could be a vote of no confidence in both, I think a lot of people in the galaxy might vote no confidence in both of them.
I think that, yes, you're absolutely right. What we're onto here is the idea that's always been in the subtext of everything. We've always seen this. Even if you take the show The Clone Wars out of the equation, you can see the shortcomings of the Jedi Council and the Jedi themselves and the role that they have assigned to themselves for all of this. But you're also seeing, in this arc in specific, it's really calling into very clear relief exactly how damaged the esteem of the Republic and the Jedi are. And what I think is interesting about that is the way that they play off of each other is obviously you have Ahsoka having left the Jedi and disillusionment from that. So that's very easy to plug into. But then you have the sister story about how the Jedi were not really Jedi-like about what happened to their parents. But tying that together with the Bad Batch arc, Echo is considered lost. Nobody wants to go get him. Rex has to fight for this mission. And so you see something where Rex is behaving more Jedi-like than the Jedi. Leave nobody behind. Don't give up. You have to go out. You have to know. You have to confirm things.
Saying he was never give up, never surrender?
Yes, never surrender. Never surrender. But
come on,
yeah.
Galaxy Quest.
I mean, come on. There is a very real component because, and we even see, because again, we're recording this before the Siege of Mandalore has started for us. That line in the trailer, the clones value loyalty. Is that something that has been lost in the galaxy during this war, but preceding this war even? This is something that Palpatine can really manipulate, is the disillusionment. People don't believe in the system anymore. Queen Jamila, I think it is, says that.
Yes.
In episode 2, the minute we lose faith in democracy is the minute it stops working. I know I'm butchering the line, but that's basically what she says. And so these two arcs really speak to that disillusionment that Palpatine's going to manipulate.
I absolutely agree, and I think, what was it so interesting for me was, with the Bad Batch arc, you see these clones who are obviously, different. And they kind of already buck the system. They're outside of the system. And one of the reasons that they're so good is because in many ways, it's the thing that makes the Jedi so good. They're unpredictable. They're not all the same. And whereas the rest of the clones, and this is one of the reasons why the algorithm works, is because the rest of the clones have been programmed to fight and tactics that they learned all the way back in Camino, and one of the main reasons that they change and grow. Somebody like we see Rex really grow and changes because of their relationship with the Jedi, but that's one of the reasons obviously Palpatine loves the clones, is because they're so controllable and they don't even know it. And so I love the way the Bad Batch themselves kind of show this ability to be outside the system and therefore not as impacted by it. And they're also, I think, more wary of it too, which is really interesting. And then you juxtapose that with these two sisters and their experience with the Jedi. It's fascinating, because what you can see is that both of these groups are predisposed to be untrustworthy of the things that don't really seem to care about them or give them any credence, really. And I just think that's really fascinating to me, the way that these two arcs, have played together, and I've been really interested, because a lot of people I've seen, they liked the Bad Batch arc, but they haven't really liked the Ahsoka arc that came out next. And I really think both of these are playing to the strengths of really allowing us to see the milieu that has been created and really kind of marinate in it right before we hit episode 3. And it also really, I think, it gives us the opportunity to see exactly why the galaxy will be so ready for the announcement that Palpatine is about to make. Because people are ready for a change. They're ready for somebody to stand up and say, yes, I'm going to lead you, and I'm going to lead you into the promised land, basically. Because that's what he does.
I think there are a whole bunch of great observations that you have there that I want to peel into, but the primary one is that the Ahsoka arc especially is incredibly important because, and I'm going to butcher the epigraph, the opening card, you can change who you are, but you can't run from yourself. I think that what is Ahsoka's arc especially speaks to the idea that who you are is who you are. Ahsoka is Ahsoka. It doesn't matter whether she's a Jedi or not. She's going to be who she is. Now, her time with the Jedi, of course, helped form her and, informed her opinions and her actions and those sorts of things. Yes, absolutely. Just like the Bad Batch. But to your point, the Bad Batch is that release valve for the Republic. It's almost a tacit admission that the Bad Batch is what the Republic and what the clones are supposed to be. They're not supposed to just be going by rote, and therefore it's a criticism of the Jedi as well. The Jedi are so trapped by their training and their rules that Anakin is an anomaly, and so is ObiWan, because of the improvisational abilities that they have. Now, of course, that's not discounting every single Jedi, but for on the whole sort of thing. But you have with the Bad Batch, you have a group of people who this is who they are. This is just who they're going to be. They're not defined by being clones. They're not defined by being Republic soldiers. They're defined by who they are. They operate as a family because they embrace everything that's unique about them that helps the whole group be better, which is exactly the tenet that the Jedi are supposed to support and put forward in the galaxy. They're supposed to evangelize that sort of message, as opposed to being the police of the galaxy with an army at their beck and call to subjugate anybody who basically gets out of line. And again, Palpatine, Sidious comes back. Everybody's playing right into creating the world that Sidious needs to be ascendant.
Well, and one of the things that I really, I'm finding fascinating too about these two arcs is just the way they show how, stretched thin, obviously, the Jedi are, and the fact that they and there doesn't seem to be the other forces there to truly be helping them do their job. When the Martez sisters tell their story about what happens to their parents, it doesn't seem to be like the police force helping them out to do anything. It's just the Jedi, and then they don't have the resources to be able to follow up the way that I'm sure they would like to be able to. And then I think we even kind of see that with this Bad Batch arc, this planet has been overrun basically by the Techno Union, and they've got this base there that probably wouldn't be there if the Jedi had been able to do the job they were meant to do.
Right.
So I just that's something that's really fascinating to me, is that again, this really drives home how far away from their primary missions they are. And it kind of shines a light on that.
Yeah, I also latch onto something as I watch it, and this is something that really this is a question I never really asked myself before this arc, but I think that the answer lies in the question. Ahsoka is somebody who is disillusioned with the Jedi, is powerful, and has a great connection with the Force. Yet Sidious never makes a play for her. Do you think that is just because she's so inherently good? Again, you can't run from who you are. That Ahsoka is so inherently good. This is the sort of thing that speaks to the idea of your base nature versus your surroundings. Both Anakin and Ahsoka come up through the Jedi ranks. Anakin is always excused and fostered and allowed to be him. Ahsoka becomes disillusioned, and Sidious never makes a play for her that we know of. Maybe he does in an arc that we haven't seen, but Sidious never makes a play for her. Do you think that's because she is just inherently different than Anakin? Or do you think that that's strictly an extension of the power that Sidious sees in Anakin?
That is a really good question, because I'd never thought about that before. But I think the answer came to me as you were speaking. And just so Palpatine helps basically get rid of Ahsoka. I think he's obviously part of the machinations to help get rid of her and have her walk away from the Order. So I think he feels like he's taken care of that. The same way that he encourages Anakin to leave ObiWan on Grievous's ship so that they can escape. And that was meant because he doesn't want Obi-Wan around. He wants Obi-Wan dead. That was his moment to get rid of Obi-Wan, too. He doesn't realize that, Anakin has such a connection with Obi-Wan that's never going to happen. As strong as the connection is between Palpatine and Anakin, he's still never going to have anybody talk him into giving up Obi-Wan Kenobi at this moment. So, I think that's a great question, and I just think it's one of those places where, Palpatine thinks that he's gotten rid of Ahsoka, and, for all intents and purposes, she will be off the board in a way that it doesn't necessarily affect his plans with Anakin. But I obviously, as we look towards the Siege of Mandalore, Ahsoka is going to have an impact probably on some of his plans in a way that he's not foreseen.
I hesitate to offer any sort of opinion or take on that, because I could argue that the Siege of Mandalore and Crimson Dawn is a way to remove Ahsoka from the equation at all. But something I'm keying on,
could be too.
Something I'm keying on, as you say it here, I hadn't even really thought about this, is obviously the biggest factor that we know of that Anakin won't let go of ObiWan on Grievous's ship, on the Invisible Hand at the beginning of Episode 3, but is because of his love for him and their kinship and everything like that. And Sidious learns in that moment, okay, I've got to get ObiWan somewhere else, because he's always going to be the one that's going to keep Anakin from turning. But is Anakin's refusal to leave Obi-Wan accentuated now by the context we have of his pain at Ahsoka having left, and especially in terms of Siege of Mandalore, that Ahsoka obviously isn't with him at that point. He's going to want to hold on to the last person. He's lost his mom. He lost Ahsoka. Padme's been distant from him. He hasn't been with her. He is not going to let go of anybody.
It sounds like Dumb and Dumber. We got no food. We got no jobs. Our pets' heads are falling off.
Yep.
No, absolutely. I think you're the fact that we know. Ahsoka even says, the last time I saw my master, he was running off to save the Chancellor, and so we even know that Anakin and Obi-Wan are a part of the Siege of Mandalore in some way, but we know they're going to get called away to go to rescue the Chancellor. And so he's going to have to leave her again, and he won't know her fate, and so absolutely, I think, we're playing into all of that. And I think, one of the things that I really appreciate so much about this Ahsoka arc was, I think they made it abundantly clear as to why people, the moment that Palpatine makes his a proclamation at the end of Episode 3, why people are so ready to just accept that this is the truth. One, they barely know the Jedi, because they've made it, Palpatine is basically, he's used this war to make it so the Jedi are barely seen by people, and when they are, they're only seen as these warrior monks who don't seem to really care, because they don't have time with everything that's going on to be who they're meant to be. And two, this war has devastated the galaxy to a point where people are looking for a savior. And so, and you see that clearly in the Martez sisters, or they're not even looking for a savior. They're just looking out for themselves completely. Everybody's looking out for themselves. So Palpatine has created a galaxy where everybody is just out for themselves. And that is the thing that I think this arc does so masterfully. And it's only by their interaction with what a Jedi was meant to be. Ahsoka in this moment is so much like Kanan is in and Rebels, where you have this connection, and then it changes people's minds about what their lives should be like, that it shouldn't just be lived for themselves. And that's the whole thing. Like, the Jedi were meant to be this selfless group to help people latch on to selflessness and not selfishness.
And that even plays into this idea, because the Bad Batch is the same way. They show up and they solve they solve problems, and so in a sense they're playing the role like the Jedi of being problem solvers. But groups like the Bad Batch should have been the ones going out, and then the Jedi shouldn't have been generals. They should have been the people that showed up after the battle, offering to people, ministering to them, and encouraging them to a new way of life, as opposed to being the ones leading the troops. The war was going to happen no matter what. The troops were activated. Why would the Jedi agree to be generals? We've talked about this before. Everybody's talked about this ad infinitum, where it is Palpatine's masterstroke. And the Bad Batch is out there. They're acting like the A-team. They go out and they solve a problem. And yes, the galaxy needs them. The galaxy needs the Bad Batch. But what they're motivated by is there's a specific issue, I have to fix it, and then I'm gone. As opposed to I'm leading a giant campaign of everything. Ahsoka, I mean, essentially what I love is the Bad Batch and Ahsoka have now entered this phase where they are like Kane from Kung Fu, where they just wander the earth helping people. Or in this case, it's the galaxy. They're wandering the galaxy helping people. And so the Bad Batch is this beautiful reflection of wandering around, making a difference the way that we would want the Jedi to. Ahsoka is doing the same thing. And so we're seeing how a Force user and non-Force users are going around making a difference and leaving a positive impact about who they are and what they did for the galaxy, as opposed to what the Jedi willingly walk into, which is becoming military commanders who are kind of a-holes, so that when Palpatine says, the Jedi have attacked me, nobody has any reason to doubt it. Except for the people like Bail Organa or Padme who know the Jedi on such an intimate level that they know it's a lie. But everybody else, yeah, the Jedi suck. But if they had been more like the Bad Batch and Ahsoka, people would have doubted Palpatine. People would not have gone along with the lie as easily.
Right. I think with the Bad Batch and Ahsoka, you're also seeing these independent thinkers, right? They're not groupthink thinkers. They're not drinking the Palpatine Kool-Aid, you know, and the Republic Kool-Aid. And so I think that's the other thing that we see here is that, and that's what Palpatine has tried to wring out of the galaxy is people who think for themselves.
Right.
And which is one of the, I mean, you know, you go all the way to episode 3 and Padme has that realization. What if we've become the very things that we were fighting against? You know, and it's because Padme still has the ability, and I think it's because of her, connection with the Jedi. Same with Bail Organa. You see these people who are connected in that way. Mon Mothma is also a character like that, you know, that they could think for themselves. We go all the way back to the Saul Guerrera arc with Onderon. Mm-hmm. They're thinking for themselves. Why? Because they were taught by the Jedi how to do the job to get rid of the separatist invasion on their own planet by themselves. You know, mm-hmm. So again, they go on to be people that help fight in the rebellion. So, like, Palpatine has tried to squelch that in the galaxy and basically make everybody like the Martez sisters before they meet Ahsoka, which is we only care about ourselves because nobody cares about us. And so Palpatine either wants people thinking like that or thinking that no, the Empire is our only hope. And those two things that keep the Empire under the Emperor's thumb for all of those many years. And it's only by people beginning to reassert themselves and to think for themselves that we get what we get with the rebellion and all. And I just think that's so fascinating how both of these arcs play into that whole idea. But it also, I think, helps us see, where we're going to go with Rex and his final journey.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, is fantastic.
I'm glad you mentioned Rex because I think that this Bad Batch arc is extremely instructive in terms of an experience that shapes Rex so that he is... It adds a little more shading to why he is less prone to go down the road that the other clones do. We know about the chip from the Lost missions, yes. But Rex has a moment in the Bad Batch arc at the end where he says, you see him soften. It's a beautifully played scene. It's absolutely amazing what they've done with the animation and the lens choices and the editing and the shot choices and everything like that. With these arcs that we've gotten. But there is that moment where Rex softens and you see him and he's being set up in that moment to become the Rex that we see in Rebels. And there's this spark in both of these arcs that represents, I think, why Palpatine is doomed to fail with his empire is that so long as there are people like Bad Batch, so long as there are people like Ahsoka out there spreading truth, the empire can reign, but it's doomed from the beginning, because so long as truth can get out there and spread, it cannot keep that truth snuffed out forever. Eventually that fire will rise in the galaxy. There will be a spark of rebellion that will guide people, so that somebody like Kanan can step into that, so that somebody like Hera, so that somebody like Saw, until he goes nuts, right? Saw goes a little crazy, sure. But Saw helps that spark. He turns it into an ember. And so Ahsoka helps it turn into an ember. She's fulcrum, for Pete's sake. So there's very much I think a very important set with these two arcs that talk about how that the flame may diminish, but it will never expire so long as there are people like this out there.
I like so much the way that these two arcs, and I think have brought, I think, the idea of the Clone Wars themselves, to this kind of conclusion as we look towards the Siege of Mandalore. And I think one of the things that they just do so well is they're allowing us to wrap up the story arcs of the Clone Wars, which are so important. It's Rex and Ahsoka. Those are the two characters who they are the ones whose fate we were so worried about when we watched the show, and we know that they survive, but this helps actually bring this part of their story to a close in a way that I think everyone will be able to be satisfied with. And so, I can't wait now for us to be able to get into the Siege of Mandalore, and I just really appreciate we're getting this opportunity. And but I also love that I don't think that any time was wasted with either of these arcs, because I think what it does is it just rightly sets up where we're going to go, especially with these two specific characters with Rex and Ahsoka. Like, this was meant to put them in a position to where the Siege of Mandalore is going to be their fire. This is what's going to refine them into being those characters that then we would see later on in Rebels. And I'm so excited for that, and I just really appreciate obviously that we got to spend time with these arcs before we dive into something so heavy, which this is going to be, which is great, and I can't wait.
More than anything, Matt, I think that I would love it if, I mean, honestly, at this point, if there has ever been a time where I would want us to be in the same room to join hands and say, this is it. Like, this feels like the roller coaster ride. And I know that this episode is going to be released after the first episode of The Siege of Mandalore has come out. But I think that even after the first episode, it's going to be that feeling of the roller coaster hill is about to crest and we're about to go down, and oh my gosh, hold my hand because I'm so excited about this. And it is something that I promise to you, I will reach out to you. We will hold hands. We will watch this roller coaster ride together at some point in the future. But if somebody wants to reach out to you now online, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, you don't even have to have AT&T. You can just reach out and touch me whenever you want on social media. I'm under the name MattRushing02 on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Vero. I'm also here on the network doing Owl Post with Dre Kaufman as we're talking about Harry Potter each and every week, one chapter at a time. You can find me on the Trek FM network. I'm doing two shows. One is called The Orb. I'm doing that with Chris Jones. We just dropped our first episode in a while. It was a lot of fun to be back talking about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I'm also doing the 602 Club with Christy Morris as we talk about all of the fandoms we love. John Mills loves to stop by there every once in a while and have a blast with us. We just talked about Predator, which was a lot of fun, the original with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So it's just a great opportunity to listen to something fun and enjoyable and get our minds off of something else. But John, if people want to catch up with you, where can they find you?
Am I allowed to tease that on 602 Club soon we're going to be talking about one of my favorite low-budget sci-fi movies?
Absolutely.
Escape from New York with Kurt Russell, who is one of my greatest man crushes of all time.
I mean, why? Why wouldn't it be?
I know. Like, he's the Hall of Fame as far as that's concerned. Okay?
I mean, his hair is legendary. So
okay, hair is a touchy subject, but man, Kurt's got some good hair.
He does.
Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. He can grow a beard so much better than I can. Like, it's crazy.
Oh, it's amazing.
It is.
I also feel that same way about Oscar Isaac and his beard. It's just anyway.
Right?
That's a whole other subject.
Oscar Isaac's beard. Like, I don't even get it.
I've seen it in person. Oh man,
is it bad enough that
luscious.
I went? Is it bad enough that I had male pattern baldness? I couldn't grow like an awesome ZZ Top type beard. This is not cool, man. Like, I feel like I got shorted. Anyway, if you want to reach out to me online, I'm Kessel Junkie, KESSELJUNKIE. Active on Twitter, sure, but probably I'm a little bit more fun on Letterboxd, where I give pithy reviews of. Boy, I watched some terrible movies, folks, and it's worth reading those reviews. And you can also, you know what? Here on the Nerd Party, there's a very super secret show that's going to be dropping this summer. The only hint that I will give you is that Brad Pitt features in some of the things that we're talking about. So if that doesn't get you to listen, I don't know what will. But basically, just look for Kessel Junkie, and there I am. And oh my goodness, my chronometer is going off. They're brewing some fresh calf. And I think we got to get back to the temple, Matt. So I think it's time to close these negotiations.
John, negotiations are closed.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.